Dear friends, dear history buffs and peace-seeking viewers, on this cold and quiet evening I am here to take you on a journey through the depths of history, through the dusty roads of distant times. Close your eyes and let your imagination run wild. From the shadows of the past, from the echoes of legends, let us step together into the complex and fascinating world of the Middle Ages. Once upon a time, in the age of great empires and their brave warriors, many events took place in the unpeaceful lands of Europe. Today I will tell you about the important events and heroes of these ancient times. The tip of my pen will touch the traces of what has been, to unearth memories lost on the shores of history. First, we will examine the Hungarian raids into Europe and the Battle of Lechfeld. I will tell you how powerful a threat the Hungarians posed during this chaotic period of the Middle Ages, how they developed an effective military strategy, and how, in the end, this battle shaped the history of Europe. Perhaps in this slice of history, we will see together the heroes and fearless leaders who once fought hand to hand. Then we will discover how the Byzantine Emperor Basileios II defeated the Bulgarians and how this victory changed the fate of Byzantium. Basileios I's bold and wise strategies made him one of the most influential rulers of his time. His victories and the difficulties on the way to victory will take us deep into history. And finally, we will witness the rise of Otto I and the Holy Roman Empire. We will see how Otto I emerged as a ruler at a young age, how he transformed his empire into a powerful entity, and how he changed the course of European history. This period, when the foundations of the Holy Roman Empire were laid, was a turning point that influenced the future of Europe. This journey will not only teach you about historical events, but will also give you the chance to dive deep into time and feel the spirit of that era. I can't wait to tell you these legendary stories, touching the roots of our history in this land once home to glorious empires, brave warriors, and clever strategists. Now, if you are ready, why don't you start this great historical journey and get lost in the depths of the past? Let's step out of the dusty pages of history and step into this night full of stories that will shed light and teach us lessons. Welcome, my dear friends. Now I would like to tell you about the origin of the Hungarians and the story of the birth of this brave and daring people. It all started in the vast steppes of Central Asia. Thousands of years ago, the Hungarians, known as valiant warriors who rode like the wind on their horses, followed in the footsteps of their ancestors and embarked on a long and difficult journey to the lands of today's Hungary. The story I will tell about the origin of the Hungarians begins in the depths of history, in the vast steppes of Central Asia. These were the lands where countless nomadic tribes were born and grew up. The ancestors of the Hungarians also lived in these lands, struggling against the hardships of nature to survive. Despite the harsh climate of the steppe, wild animals, and threats from other nomadic tribes, these people survived and were renowned for their courage and determination. The earliest traces of the origins of the Hungarians can be found in the lands south of present-day Russia, stretching north of the Black Sea. This vast geography was a place of constant movement of nomadic tribes, where different cultures came together. While living here, the ancestors of the Hungarians learned to hunt, ride horses, and fight for survival. The horse was both their means of transportation and their greatest weapon in battle. Born on horseback and dying on horseback, these people lived a life at one with nature. In time, this nomadic people started a great migration towards the west. Although the reasons for this migration are not known exactly, climate changes, conflicts with other tribes, and the search for more fertile lands can be counted among the reasons behind this great movement. During this migration, Hungarians encountered, influenced, and were influenced by many different cultures. These encounters led to the enrichment and diversification of Hungarian culture. This centuries-long migration brought Hungarians to the Carpathian Basin. This region became their new homeland. Hungarians established permanent settlements in these lands and gradually began to abandon their nomadic lifestyle. They learned agriculture, animal husbandry, and craftsmanship. This change led to changes in their social structure and culture. However, the fighting spirit from their nomadic past remained with them. Hungarians settled in the Carpathian Basin, where they built a new culture and civilization. Their lifestyle, social structures, and beliefs were shaped in accordance with the conditions of this new homeland. Hungarians established their own kingdom in these lands and became one of the important actors of European history. In this process, they had to struggle against many difficulties and threats. However, their courage, determination, and resilience have always sustained them. Dear viewers, the origin of the Hungarians and their journey to the Carpathian Basin tells not only the history of a people, but also the story of humanity's struggle and survival. This story is a call to us from the depths of the past. By heeding this call, we will continue this journey to understand the courageous stories of the Hungarians, their triumphs and challenges. Now we go a little further back in time. Here lies a history shaped by war cries and fear that echoed across Europe. Let us go deeper into these events together. The first Hungarian raids into Europe began in the late 9th century. These raids were swift and ruthless. Hungarians were lightning-fast warriors on horseback. This gave them a great advantage against the sedentary and slower-moving armies of Europe. The Hungarians surprised their enemies with sudden raids, sacked settlements, and retreated quickly. The first major Hungarian raid was in Italy in 899. During this raid, Hungarian warriors entered the north of Italy and defeated the army of King Berengar of Italy near Verona. This victory showed the strength and courage of the Hungarians in Europe. After this victory, the Hungarians plundered many parts of Italy and returned with great spoils. These raids caused fear and panic all over Europe. European kingdoms did not know how to defend themselves against this new and ferocious enemy. Since the Hungarian raids came quickly and unexpectedly, it was extremely difficult to make defense preparations. In various parts of Europe, settlements and villages were subjected to sudden Hungarian attacks. People took refuge in castles and walled cities to protect themselves from these raids. Great kingdoms such as France, Germany, and Italy tried to take various measures against the Hungarian raids. However, the Hungarians' fast and flexible war tactics neutralized the traditional battle formations of European armies. During this period, European kings even started to make peace treaties with the Hungarians and pay them tribute. This further increased the power of the Hungarians and made them bolder. The Hungarian raids had a great impact not only militarily, but also economically and socially. During the raids, many settlements were sacked. People were captured and sold as slaves. This led to a major economic collapse in various parts of Europe. Agricultural lands were destroyed, trade routes were cut off, and the population began to live under constant threat. European kingdoms tried to strengthen their defenses against Hungarian raids. Castles were built, fortifications were built around cities, and armies were reorganized. However, the Hungarian attacks were so unexpected and swift that these measures were often insufficient. It required great courage and strategic acumen to counter the Hungarian sudden raids. The first Hungarian raids into Europe made them an important actor in European history. These raids were characterized by war cries and fear that echoed across Europe. However, this aggressive behavior of the Hungarians would eventually lead to a major conflict. The Battle of Lechfeld would be the culmination of this conflict. But before we move on to this battle, I will give you some information about the military tactics and strategies of the Hungarians. The Hungarians were a people who acted with great skill and intelligence on the battlefield. With their mounted archers and light cavalry tactics, they stunned the entrenched armies of Europe. Let's take a closer look at these impressive Hungarian battle tactics and strategies. The Hungarians' greatest strength on the battlefield came from their fast-moving horse archers. During the battle, the horse archers were able to move quickly and fire deadly arrows at their enemies at the same time. This tactic allowed them to easily penetrate their enemies' defensive lines and create chaos. By skillfully balancing on horseback, Hungarian archers were able to shoot arrows with high accuracy even on the move. Hungarian light cavalry units were also very impressive. These troops had the advantage of speed and agility against heavily armored European armies. The light cavalry would move in and out of enemy lines quickly, launching sudden raids and catching their enemies unprepared. This tactic demoralized the enemy armies and kept them on constant alert. In order to wear down and weaken their enemies, the Hungarian cavalry kept constantly on the move and avoided large-scale skirmishes. Another important strategy of the Hungarians was the attack and escape tactic. This tactic was practiced by launching sudden and unexpected attacks against their enemies and then quickly retreating. The Hungarians made their enemies chase them and lured them into traps. In this way, they divided the enemy armies and destroyed them piece by piece. Their tactics of attack and flight disrupted their enemies' strategic plans and left them in constant uncertainty. These military tactics and strategies of the Hungarians were the key to their victory in Europe. Horse archers and light cavalry units gave them a great advantage over their enemies. With their fast and agile movements, the Hungarians were able to surprise their enemies and keep them under constant threat. These tactics gave them a great advantage over the entrenched and slower-moving armies of Europe. This superiority of the Hungarians on the battlefield made them the most feared warriors in European history. However, these Hungarian military tactics eventually led to a major conflict. The Battle of Lechfeld was the moment when these Hungarian tactics were tested and their fate changed. In this battle, the fast and agile tactics of the Hungarians confronted the strategic acumen of the European kings. The Battle of Lechfeld was a turning point at the peak of Hungarian power in Europe and its subsequent decline. Understanding this battle and its outcome will help us better understand the place of the Hungarians in European history. Now, after enlightening you about the military tactics and strategies of the Hungarians, I will take you to the culmination of these tactics, the Battle of Lechfeld. Are you ready to discover together this great battle that decided the fate of the Hungarians in Europe? If you are ready, let's take a journey into the depths of our history and listen to the story of the Battle of Lechfeld. The Battle of Lechfeld took place in the mid-10th century, at a time when Hungarian raids were affecting much of Europe. The Hungarians, with their fast-moving horse archers and light cavalry, were constantly raiding the established kingdoms of Europe. These raids created fear and panic in large parts of Europe, forcing the established kingdoms to reconsider their defense and security strategies. The reasons behind the Hungarian raids into Europe were largely based on economic and strategic considerations. As a nomadic people, Hungarians were in search of new settlements and booty. The rich lands and cities of Europe whetted their appetite and drew them towards these regions. However, these raids were perceived as a threat by the established kingdoms of Europe, and these kingdoms began to band together to stop the Hungarian advance. Just before the Battle of Lechfeld, the great kingdoms and fiefdoms of Europe decided to develop a unified defense strategy against the Hungarian threat. The Holy Roman Emperor Otto I gathered a large army to eliminate this threat and ensure the security of Europe. As an experienced commander and strategist, Otto I prepared an effective defense plan against the Hungarians' fast and agile tactics. The preparatory phase of the war was of great importance for both sides. The Hungarians gathered a large army to go deep into Europe and capture the spoils of this region. Using their traditional tactics, the Hungarian commanders planned to overwhelm their enemies with quick and surprise attacks. However, this time they would find a well-organized and disciplined European army against them. European armies made various preparations to counter the Hungarian tactics. Otto I deployed his army at strategically important points and aimed to squeeze his enemies in a certain area. He also strengthened the defensive lines and kept heavily armored cavalry units at the forefront to limit the Hungarians' ability to move quickly. These preparations would make the European army more resilient and effective in battle. That morning, as the Battle of Lechfeld began, the fate of Europe was about to be decided. The Hungarian army, with its swift and agile cavalry, was marching towards the heart of Europe. The hoofbeats of their horses and the whine of their arrows echoed across the battlefield. The Hungarians had won many victories before with their fast and deadly tactics. However, this time they were up against a different enemy. Otto I, the Holy Roman Emperor, had strategically positioned his army and built a strong defensive line against Hungarian attacks. That morning, Otto I stood in front of his army, inspiring courage and hope in his soldiers. "Today we will decide the fate of Europe," he is said to have said. His determination and strategic acumen gave his soldiers confidence. In the first hours of the battle, the Hungarians launched a swift attack. Their horse archers rained arrows down on the defensive lines of the European army. These arrows were deadly and accurate, but Otto I's soldiers remained disciplined in their defense. Heavily armored cavalry and well-organized infantry units resisted the Hungarian attacks. The Hungarians thought they could break through the defensive line with these swift attacks, but they failed against the determination and discipline of the European army. In the middle of the battle, Otto I counterattacked with a strategic move. Heavily armored cavalry began advancing towards the Hungarian lines. This attack caused panic and confusion in the Hungarian army. Horse archers were ineffective against the heavily armored cavalry. Otto I took advantage of this situation and led his army deeper into the Hungarian lines. Step by step, the European army pushed the Hungarian army back. In the final stages of the battle, the Hungarian army suffered heavy losses. Their commander gave the order to retreat. However, the European army was in hot pursuit. Otto I sensed that victory was near and ordered his troops to launch a final attack. This attack led to the complete disintegration and retreat of the Hungarian army. The Battle of Lechfeld ended in a decisive victory for the European army. With the end of the war, there was great joy and relief in Europe. With this victory, Otto I consolidated the power of the Holy Roman Empire. The Hungarian raids ended, and a long period of peace began in Europe. This victory also proved Otto I's leadership skills and strategic genius. With the end of the Battle of Lechfeld, a great catastrophe was in store for the Hungarian army. On that day, when the Hungarian commanders realized that victory was slipping away, they knew the inevitable. The Hungarian swift horse archers and agile cavalry were no match for the disciplined attacks of the heavily armored European army. Having suffered heavy losses on the battlefield, the Hungarians decided to retreat quickly. This retreat was not easy for the Hungarian army. Fleeing across the open fields of Lechfeld, the Hungarian troops felt vulnerable under the close pursuit of the European army. Otto I wanted to completely defeat the enemy to ensure a complete victory. Therefore, he pursued the Hungarian army relentlessly. In order to avoid further losses during the retreat, the Hungarian commanders divided their army into small groups and dispersed in different directions. However, even this tactic proved ineffective in the face of the close pursuit of the European army. This major defeat of the Hungarians caused them to stop their raids into Europe. These raids had been a source of fear and anxiety in Europe for years. However, the Battle of Lechfeld showed that the Hungarians could no longer pose a threat to Europe. After this defeat, the Hungarians retreated to their own lands and had to deal with internal turmoil for a while. During this period, Hungarian society underwent a major change. The old warrior traditions gave way to agriculture and sedentary. Hungarians had to restructure themselves after this defeat. In Europe, the effects of this victory were deep and lasting. With this victory, the Holy Roman Emperor Otto I was recognized as a great leader in Europe. It was not only a military victory, but also a political and religious victory. This victory consolidated the authority of the Holy Roman Empire and established a strong central authority in Europe. With the support of kingdoms and duchies across Europe, Otto I rebuilt the Holy Roman Empire in a strong way. Otto I's victory also radically changed the balance of power in Europe. Before the Battle of Lechfeld, Hungarian raids had wreaked havoc and created political instability in various parts of Europe. With this victory, however, order was restored in Europe. The power of the Holy Roman Empire also had an impact on other European kingdoms. Otto I was proclaimed emperor by the Pope after this victory, and thus the authority of the Holy Roman Empire was established on a religious basis. During this period, the foundations of the feudal system in Europe were further consolidated. Under the authority of the Holy Roman Empire, feudal lords and kings gained a stronger position in their territories by pledging their loyalty to the emperor. This system ensured long-term political stability in Europe and created economic and cultural cohesion between the regions. After the Battle of Lechfeld, the Hungarian army suffered a heavy defeat. This defeat was a turning point for the Hungarian people. The bitter losses of the war damaged the warrior spirit of the Hungarians and pushed them into a deep questioning. Hungarian leaders realized that they could no longer survive on raids and wars. In this difficult period, Hungarian society had to be restructured. The defeat of the Hungarians led them to turn inward and try to establish order in their own land. During this period, Hungarian leaders made great efforts to pacify internal unrest and unite the people. During this period, the social and economic structure of the Hungarians underwent radical changes. The old warrior traditions gave way to agriculture and sedentary life. Hungarian villages and towns were built in a more secure and organized way. During this period, the conversion of Hungarians to Christianity also began. Christianity had become a unifying force in Europe, and by embracing this new religion, Hungarians took an important step towards becoming part of Europe. Hungarian leaders believed that Christianity would bring peace and order and led their people to this new faith. This process brought about a major transformation in Hungarian society. The old pagan beliefs were gradually abandoned and replaced by the values of Christianity. Churches were built. Priests began to educate the people, and Christianity became the center of Hungarian society. Hungarians' conversion to Christianity also accelerated their integration with Europe. Hungarians started to establish closer relations with other Christian kingdoms of Europe. These relations were not only religious, but also political and economic. Hungarian kings tried to ensure the security and prosperity of their countries by forming alliances with the powerful kingdoms of Europe. These alliances supported the permanent settlement and integration of Hungarians in Europe. The process of permanent settlement of Hungarians in Europe was a long and difficult one. During this process, Hungarians made great efforts to harmonize themselves with their European neighbors. Agriculture, trade, and crafts were developed. Hungarian villages and towns engaged in economic and cultural exchanges with other parts of Europe. These exchanges enriched and diversified Hungarian society. During this period, Hungarian leaders undertook major projects to strengthen the country's infrastructure. Road networks, bridges, and waterways were built. These infrastructure projects gave Hungarians easier access to Europe's trade networks and accelerated economic growth. Great strides were also made in education and culture. Schools and universities were opened, and art and literature were encouraged. During this period, Hungarian culture was enriched by interacting with other cultures of Europe. The process of permanent settlement and integration of Hungarians in Europe enabled them to become an integral part of Europe. In this process, Hungarian society redefined itself and joined a large European family. This was not only a political and economic integration, but also a cultural and social transformation. After the Battle of Lechfeld, as Hungarians became part of Europe, not only their political and economic structure but also their cultural identity began to take shape. The Hungarian people interacted with various parts of Europe, bringing their own cultural richness to these lands, and at the same time being influenced by Europe's cultural heritage. This interaction contributed greatly to the enrichment and diversification of European culture. First of all, I would like to talk about the contributions of Hungarians in the field of music. Hungarian music has added a unique flavor to European music with its characteristic melodies and rhythms. Traditional Hungarian folk music has become popular both locally and throughout Europe, inspiring many composers. Hungarian folk music and dances have been welcomed all over Europe, and this cultural richness has breathed new life into Europe's music scene. Famous Hungarian composers such as Franz Liszt left a deep mark on European music and made Hungarian melodies an important part of classical music. In addition, Hungarians have also made significant contributions in the field of literature. Hungarian literature has gained a unique place in Europe's literary heritage. Hungarian writers have brought a different perspective to Europe's literary scene by creating works blended with rich folklore and mythological stories. In particular, Hungarian epics and heroic stories attracted great attention in various parts of Europe and became a part of European literature. The contribution of the Hungarians in the field of architecture cannot be ignored. The magnificent castles, churches and palaces built in Hungary have an important place in the architectural heritage of Europe. These structures, which bear the traces of Gothic and Renaissance architecture, reflect the artistic and engineering skills of the Hungarians. In particular, the magnificent buildings in Budapest represent the pinnacle of Hungarian architecture and occupy an important place in Europe's architectural heritage. Hungarian contributions in agriculture and crafts also shaped the economic and social structure of Europe. By introducing new techniques and products in agriculture, Hungarians increased Europe's agricultural productivity. In addition, Hungarian artisans, especially in fields such as metalworking and weaving, created works that were highly appreciated in Europe. These artisans worked in various parts of Europe, contributing to local economies and teaching their crafts. The culinary culture of the Hungarians also resonated widely in Europe. Hungarian cuisine is known for its spicy and delicious dishes, which have become popular all over Europe. In particular, Hungarian goulash and paprika dishes have gained a unique place in European cuisine. Hungarian chefs worked in various palaces and kitchens in Europe, introducing and popularizing these delicacies. All these contributions show the deep and wide influence of Hungarians on European culture. Hungarians are an important part of Europe's cultural heritage and add their own richness to it. This story tells how Hungarians have joined and become part of the great European cultural family. Dear audience, this important contribution of Hungarians to European culture still resonates in the depths of history. Now, after this story, let's move on to the story of Byzantine Emperor Basileios II and the defeat of the Bulgarians. If you are ready, let's continue walking together through the depths of history. Throughout its history, the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, has faced challenges and changes that have constantly tested its ability to survive. By the late 10th century, Byzantium was struggling with both internal and external problems. The empire was constantly at war with enemies such as the Bulgarians in the north, the Muslim Arabs in the east, and the Normans in the south. However, in addition to these external threats, serious administrative problems and economic difficulties were also emerging internally. Internally, aristocratic landowners were gaining power, weakening the central authority. These large landowners not only avoided paying taxes but also formed their own armies and posed a threat to the empire. There were also tensions between different ethnic and religious groups in Byzantium. Although Byzantium was successful in keeping different cultures and beliefs together, conflicts between these groups sometimes threatened the unity of the empire. Economically, the empire was going through a difficult period. Much of the agricultural land had fallen into the hands of aristocrats, and peasants were oppressed by heavy taxes. Insecure trade routes and frequent wars were draining the empire's financial resources. All these problems were weakening Byzantium and making it vulnerable to its enemies. It was in such a difficult period that the young Basileios ascended the Byzantine throne. Born in 960, Basileios was the son of Romanos II. When he ascended the throne as a young boy, the actual running of the empire was carried out by an influential general, Nikephoros Phocas, and then John Tzimiskes. These two powerful generals achieved great success in defending Byzantium against external threats and re-strengthened the empire. Basileios, however, had much to learn during this period, and when he ascended the throne he showed himself to be a decisive, intelligent, and courageous leader. Under Basileios II, the Byzantine Empire underwent a major transformation. Basileios carried out sweeping reforms to establish a strong central authority and restore the empire to its former glory. First, he took harsh measures against large landowners. In order to prevent the rise of these landowners and to strengthen the central authority, he confiscated their land and distributed it to small peasants. In this way, he both won the loyalty of the peasants and revitalized the economy. Basileios also reorganized the tax system. He passed new laws to ensure fair collection of taxes and to prevent corruption. These reforms filled the state treasury and increased the financial power of the empire. In addition to economic reforms, he also made great changes in the military field. He increased the discipline of the army and emphasized the training of soldiers. Perhaps the most important achievement of Basileios I was the expansion of the Byzantine Empire's borders, making it once again the most powerful state in the region. In the east, he led successful campaigns against the Arabs, consolidating Byzantine rule in Anatolia. In the north, by defeating the Bulgarian kingdom, he strengthened Byzantine dominance in the Balkans. Dear viewers, Basileios II's decisive and innovative leadership brought the Byzantine Empire back to its feet and gave it a long period of stability. This story is a good example of how a strong and decisive leader can rebuild his empire even in difficult times. Now, following this story, let's move on to the story of the Byzantine Emperor Basileios II and the defeat of the Bulgarians. If you are ready, let's continue walking together through the depths of history. Yes, dear friends, now I will tell you about the history and founding of the Bulgarians, an epic of war cries echoing from the mountain peaks and hopes for peace floating across the plains. The history of the Bulgarians is a rich and complex story, a blend of many peoples and cultures. Long ago, different tribes inhabited the land we know today as Bulgaria. These tribes were independent communities, usually engaged in animal husbandry and agriculture. But over time, they began to come together to form a greater power and unity. This unification marks the birth of the Bulgarian people. The Bulgarians trace their origins to a nomadic people known as the Proto-Bulgarians who lived north of the Black Sea. These Proto-Bulgarians, a people of Turkic origin, began to migrate southward from this region in the 4th century AD. Wherever they migrated, they were known for their fighting skills and strategic intelligence. Their nomadic lifestyle made them fast and effective warriors. As they migrated, the Proto-Bulgarians approached the territory of the Eastern Roman Empire and began to pose a significant threat to the borders of the Byzantine Empire. However, this nomadic people were not only warriors but also possessed diplomatic skills. They made various agreements with Byzantium, sometimes as friends and sometimes as enemies. In the 7th century, under the leadership of Ispara, the Proto-Bulgarians crossed the Danube and settled in the territory of present-day Bulgaria. This migration is one of the most important events in Bulgarian history. Ispara managed to establish a strong Bulgarian state by forming an alliance with the Slavic tribes living in the new lands. This alliance united and strengthened the Bulgarian people. One of the greatest achievements of the Bulgarians during this period was their victory in the war against the Byzantine Emperor Constantine IV in 680. This victory resulted in the Byzantine Empire recognizing the existence of the Bulgarians and officially recognizing them as a state. With this victory, the Bulgarians settled permanently in the lands south of the Danube and the first Bulgarian state was established. In addition to having a strong military structure, this newly established state developed rapidly culturally and economically. The Bulgarians created a rich cultural heritage by combining Slavic culture with their own traditions. During this period, in addition to agriculture and animal husbandry, trade became an important economic activity. The trade routes provided by the Danube River helped the Bulgarians to become economically stronger. This first period in the history of the Bulgarians is full of strong leaders and successful wars. The leaders who followed Ispara expanded the borders of the state and ensured internal peace. During this period, the Bulgarian state became a major power in the Balkans. This, dear friends, concludes the story I have told you about the history and founding of the Bulgarians. But this is only the beginning. The civilization that the Bulgarians established in these lands will remain strong in the following centuries and will leave an important mark in history. In future videos, I will tell you in more detail how this powerful state of the Bulgarians developed and grew. Now I will tell you the story of the first conflicts between Byzantium and the Bulgarians and the rise to power of the Bulgarians. It is full of swordplay, strategic maneuvers and hard-fought battles that echo across the ancient lands. Sit back and relax, because this epic narrative will take you deep into the past. After the Bulgarians settled south of the Danube under the leadership of Ispara, they quickly rose to power. However, this strength attracted the attention of the Byzantine Empire and inevitably led to a confrontation between the two great powers. It was during this period that the first conflicts between Byzantium and the Bulgarians broke out. The strengthening of the Bulgarians in the new lands posed a great threat to the Byzantine Empire. Emperor Constantine IV took action to break the power of the Bulgarians and bring them under control. In 680, the Byzantine army organized an expedition north of the Danube. However, this campaign ended in disaster for the Byzantines. With their superior tactics on the battlefield, the Bulgarians defeated the Byzantine army and won a great victory. This victory resulted in the official recognition of the Bulgarians by the Byzantine Empire, and the Bulgarians settled permanently in the lands south of the Danube River. After this victory, the Bulgarians continued to grow rapidly in power and to gain new territories. They organized strategic attacks and expanded their borders by looking for the weak moments of the Byzantine Empire. Especially under Krum Khan, the Bulgarians became a great power. Krum was a successful leader not only on the battlefield but also in domestic politics. He ruled his people in a disciplined way, passed new laws, and strengthened the economy. Krum Khan is known for his campaigns against Byzantium. In 811, Byzantine Emperor Nikephoros I attacked the Bulgarian lands with a large army. However, Krum cleverly set a trap, destroyed the Byzantine army, and took Nikephoros' head as a trophy. This event went down in history as one of the greatest Byzantine defeats against the Bulgarians. The reign of Omurtag Khan, who followed Krum, was a period when the Bulgarians consolidated their power. Umurtag concluded peace treaties with Byzantium, ensuring internal peace and strengthening his state. At the same time, he initiated major construction projects in his country, founded new cities and built roads. During this period, the Bulgarians made great progress not only in the military sphere, but also in the cultural and economic sphere. The conflicts between Byzantium and the Bulgarians led to great losses and victories for both sides. However, these conflicts were not just wars between two peoples. It was also a time when two great civilizations interacted with each other, learning from each other and enriching each other culturally. Byzantium's rich culture and state structure had a great impact on the Bulgarians. The Bulgarians further developed their own civilization with Byzantine influences. This period of difficult and bloody conflicts enabled the Bulgarians to take their place on the stage of history as a powerful state. Their battles with Byzantium demonstrated their military skills and strategic acumen. At the same time, their victories and peace treaties during this period helped the Bulgarians to be recognized as a great power both in the East and in the West. This, dear friends, is the story of the first conflicts between Byzantium and the Bulgarians, and of their rise to power. It is a story not only of battles and victories, but also of the interaction of two great civilizations and what they learned from each other. Are you ready? Then relax and pay attention, because what I am about to tell you will take you back to the glorious yet challenging days of history. Basileios I was a young and ambitious emperor of the Byzantine Empire. When he ascended the throne, he had to fight both internal and external enemies. But over time, with his strong will and decisive steps, he managed to overcome these challenges. One of the biggest threats to the empire was the Bulgarians. Basileios' goal was to regain Byzantium's former power and subjugate the Bulgarians. This grand goal required Basileios to develop a long-term strategy. First, he had to restore internal peace and establish stability in every corner of the empire. To do this, he suppressed internal rebellions, reorganized his army, and established a strong administration with loyal generals. After putting his internal affairs in order, he began to focus on external threats. The Bulgarians were at the forefront of these threats. Basileios made both diplomatic and military preparations to be successful against the Bulgarians. In the field of diplomacy, he tried to gain allies. He especially strengthened his relations with the Russians in the north. He made a strategic marriage agreement with Prince Vladimir of Kiev, making him an ally of Byzantium. This alliance meant squeezing the Bulgarians from the north and gave Basileios a great advantage. Military preparations were a long and arduous process. Basileios modernized and disciplined his army. He developed new fighting techniques, equipped his army, and built new fortresses. He strengthened the defense lines, especially in the Balkans. He paid great attention to the training of every soldier in his army and developed strategies to make them superior to the Bulgarians. Basileios' strategy against the Bulgarians was not limited to military power. He also waged psychological warfare. He engaged in propaganda activities to demoralize the Bulgarians. He magnified his small victories against them and tried to shake the confidence of the Bulgarian people. While this psychological warfare weakened the morale of the Bulgarians, it increased the confidence of the Byzantine army. One of Basileios' biggest military moves was his campaigns against the army of the Bulgarian king Samuel. These campaigns demonstrated Basileios' military genius and strategic acumen. He organized constant attacks to wear down Samuel's army and put them in a perpetual defensive position. This tactic eventually weakened the Bulgarian army and broke their resistance. On the diplomatic front, Basileios' success was not limited to gaining allies. At the same time, he was able to exploit the disagreements and divisions within the Bulgarians. He sowed discord among the Bulgarian aristocrats and prevented them from uniting. These internal conflicts weakened the military power of the Bulgarians and made Basileios' job easier. This, my dear friends, was Basileios II's strategy and goals against the Bulgarians. His great perseverance, determination, and intelligence made the Byzantine Empire strong again and made the Bulgarians submit. This story is not only the triumph of an emperor, but also a lesson in the importance of strategy, diplomacy, and military genius. Dear friends, as we continue to get lost in the depths of history, this time I will tell you about one of the greatest victories of the Byzantine Emperor Basileios II, the Battle of Lechfeld. This battle symbolizes the final victory of the Byzantine Empire over the Bulgarians and is one of the key events that changed the course of history. From the preparations to the outcome of the battle, we will explore every moment of this great conflict together. Are you ready? Then let's begin. Basileios prepared for the Battle of Lechfeld with the determination to completely defeat the army of the Bulgarian King Samuel. The preparations for this battle were the result of years of strategic planning and patient waiting. In the previous years, Basileios had organized many small-scale attacks to weaken the Bulgarians. These attacks were intended to wear down and demoralize Samuel's army. In preparation for the war, Basileios modernized and equipped his army. Before the battle, he placed his army at strategic points near the Lechfeld mountains. This mountainous region was an important place that would determine the course of the war. Each unit of his army consisted of carefully selected and trained soldiers. Light cavalry, heavily armored infantry, and archers were ready for battle under Basileios' command. Samuel deployed his army at the foot of the Lechfeld mountains. The harsh conditions of the mountainous region gave the Bulgarian army a defensive advantage. Samuel built fortresses and fortified strategic points to counter Byzantine attacks. However, the intelligence and strategic genius of Basileios overcame these defensive measures. The battle began on July 29, 1014, at the foot of the Lechfeld mountains. Carefully directing his army, Basileios implemented a clever plan to break through the Bulgarian defensive lines. First, he sent part of his army on a direct attack on the Bulgarian defense lines. While this attack kept the Bulgarians busy, Basileios had a secret plan. Basileios managed to sneak behind the Bulgarians by moving the other part of his army behind the mountains. This surprise move put the Bulgarian army between two fires and caused great panic among Samuel's soldiers. This strategic move by Basileios was a critical step that determined the course of the war. The Battle of Lechfeld ended in a decisive victory for the Byzantine Empire. Samuel's army suffered heavy losses, pinned down on two fronts. Although Samuel managed to escape from the battlefield, his army suffered a major defeat and morale collapsed. To crown his victory, Basileios captured 15,000 Bulgarian soldiers. The release of these prisoners by gouging out their eyes was a bloody moment in history. Only 1 out of every 100 soldiers was left with one eye intact, so that when they returned to their homeland, they would tell of the power of Byzantium and the determination of Basileios. This ruthless strategy also psychologically cemented the Byzantine victory. After the battle, Basileios continued with large-scale campaigns to completely break the Bulgarian resistance. Samuel died within a year after this heavy defeat, and the Bulgarian Empire's resistance was completely broken. Byzantium took control of the Bulgarian lands, expanding the empire's borders and establishing a permanent dominance in the region. This victory marked the beginning of a period in which the Byzantine Empire regained its power and prestige. With this victory, Basileios earned the title of Butcher of the Bulgarians and marked one of the greatest victories of the empire in history. This victory was not only a military success, but also a demonstration of Byzantine strategic genius and Basileios' determination. The Battle of Lechfeld and the victory of Basileios I had largely broken the Bulgarian resistance. But the Bulgarian people, as we have seen time and again throughout history, had a strong capacity for resilience and rebirth. Although the Bulgarian Empire weakened for a short time after Samuel's death, the fighting spirit within the people had not yet been extinguished. Samuel's son Gabriel Radomir and his successor Ivan Vladislav sought to continue their father's legacy by ascending the Bulgarian throne. Gabriel Radomir tried to continue the resistance against Byzantium during his short reign. However, he was not very successful due to Byzantine pressure and internal turmoil, and was eventually killed by his cousin Ivan Vladislav. After taking the throne in 1015, Ivan Vladislav made great efforts to reorganize the Bulgarian Empire and strengthen resistance against Byzantium. Despite internal power struggles, Vladislav forged various alliances and carried out military reforms in order to resist Byzantine pressure. However, he died during the siege of Durs in 1018, and the Bulgarian resistance suffered a major blow. With the victory of Basileios II, the Byzantine Empire largely controlled the Bulgarian lands. However, this victory was consolidated not only by military power, but also by strategic and diplomatic policies. Instead of ruling the Bulgarian lands directly, Byzantium granted a form of autonomy by binding local rulers to its loyalty. This policy was important both to minimize resistance and to gain the support of the local population. Byzantine policies in the Bulgarian lands were based on integrating the local population into the empire and ensuring cultural assimilation. Byzantium brought the Bulgarian church under its control and selected religious leaders from among those loyal to Byzantium. In this way, the aim was to exert control over the religious loyalties of the population. Economically, Byzantium included the Bulgarian lands in the empire's trade network. Trade routes were reorganized and Bulgarian merchants' access to Byzantine markets was facilitated. This ensured both economic integration and increased the loyalty of Bulgarian merchants to Byzantium. Militarily, Byzantium built fortresses on Bulgarian territory, controlling strategic points. Soldiers were recruited from the local population to join the Byzantine army. This was important both to weaken local resistance and to increase the military power of the empire. The Bulgarian population tried to continue their resistance even after the death of Basileios II. Especially local leaders and nobles continued their struggle for independence against Byzantium. However, Byzantium harshly suppressed every resistance and prevented the Bulgarians' efforts to rise again. Basileios II's successors continued to pursue similar policies to keep the Bulgarian lands under control. Various reforms were carried out to win the loyalty of the local population and minimize resistance. However, Byzantium's internal problems and external threats weakened its control over the Bulgarian lands from time to time. During this period, the Byzantine Empire managed to keep the Bulgarian lands under control, not only through military power, but also through diplomatic and cultural policies. Various strategies were employed to win the loyalty of the local population and minimize resistance. However, the Bulgarian people's desire for independence and the spirit of resistance were not completely extinguished, despite all the efforts of Byzantium. My dear friends, I will now take you to the reign of Basileios II, one of the most important and influential emperors of the Byzantine Empire, and his importance in the history of the empire. Basileios II was a leader who shaped not only the military and political structure of the period, but also the future of Byzantium. Let's discover the story of this great leader together. Basileios II ascended the Byzantine throne in the late 10th century and ruled the empire for almost half a century. In 976, when he ascended the throne at a young age, the Byzantine Empire was plagued by internal and external problems. With great determination and courage, the young emperor set out to overcome these problems. He inherited an empire weakened by court intrigue and struggles for the throne. However, thanks to his intelligence, political genius, and military skills, Basileios I was soon able to overcome these problems. By neutralizing his rivals and enemies at court, he consolidated control of the empire. One of Basileios II's greatest achievements was rebuilding the empire's military power and modernizing its army. Under his leadership, the Byzantine army became a disciplined, powerful, and well-equipped force. These reforms were critical to protecting and expanding the empire's borders. Basileios secured Byzantium's eastern borders by organizing successful campaigns against the Muslim Arabs on the eastern frontier. He also consolidated Byzantine dominance in the Balkans with campaigns against the Bulgarian kingdom in the west. These campaigns resulted in major victories, such as the Battle of Lechfeld, and increased Byzantine influence in the region. In addition to military victories, Basileios I also carried out important reforms in domestic politics. He strengthened central authority by limiting the power of feudal lords. In this way, he ensured the internal stability of the empire and promoted economic development. Through land reforms, he protected the rights of small farmers and strengthened the rural economy. These reforms strengthened the economic and social structure of the empire and improved the welfare of the people. Basileios I also reformed the legal and justice system, ensuring that justice was administered in every corner of the empire. Basileios II's mastery of foreign policy also strengthened the Byzantine Empire's diplomatic relations. In the west, he secured the empire's western borders by forging alliances with the Holy Roman Empire. In the east, he maintained balanced relations with the Arab Emirates and Persia, protecting its eastern borders. Thanks to his diplomatic skills, Basileios I made the Byzantine Empire a respected power in the international arena. He expanded the empire's trade routes and strengthened its economic relations. My dear friends, the importance of Basileios I in the history of the empire is not limited to military victories and domestic reforms. His leadership allowed the Byzantine Empire to enjoy a golden age and a period of stability that lasted until the middle of the 11th century. Even after the death of Basileios I, his legacy and reforms ensured that the empire remained strong and stable. His military reforms increased the strength and discipline of the Byzantine army, while his domestic reforms contributed to the consolidation of central authority and the acceleration of economic development. Even today, the story of Basileios I reminds us of the importance of leadership and determination. His legacy symbolizes one of the most brilliant periods in the history of the Byzantine Empire. Sevgili dostlar, tarihin derinliklerin yaptığım bu yolculukta, şimdi sizleri kutsal Roma İmparatorluğu yönetimlerini büyük liderlerden biri olan Otto I götürürsegim. Bu büyük liderin hikayesini tüm ayrıntılarıyla sanki onun yanındaymışız gibi keşfederiz. Şimdi Otto'nun hayatına ve imparatorluğa atıcı ilk adımlara bir göz atalım. Otto 912 yılında 89 Heinrich ve Matilda'nın oğlu olarak dünyaya geldi. Onun doğumu Saksanya hanedanının güçlü ve köklü ailesine yeni bir umut getirdi. Babası Heinrich Alman kraliyetini birleştirmek ve güçlendirmek için önemli bir liderdi. Annesi Matilda asıl bir soydan gelen bilge ve dindar bir kadindi. Otto'nun köklü babasının siyasi ve askeri başarılarını gözlemleyerek gitti. Babasının gölgesinde büyüyen genci Otto, hem savaş alanında hem de saray entrikalarında ustalaşmaya öğrendi. Heinrich oğluna liderlik ve yönetim sanatını öğretirken, Matilda da ona dini de görleri ve alaki ilkeleri sağladı. Genci Otto sadis fiziksel güçlü değil. Aynı zamanda zekası ve stratejik başarılarıyla da dikkat çekiyordu. Eğitimini tamamladığında babası Heinrich, yanında savaşlara katılmaya başladı. Bu savaşlar onun askeri başarılarını geliştirmesini ve liderlik yeteneklerini bilemesini sağladı. Jansiasta kazandigi zaferler v gastradigi Cesaretalato, Hakanen v Eskerlarenen Guzunda Bayuk bir Karaman Halingeldi. Onan Leiterligindi Saxon Ordusu, Otto nun Jalesekteki Boyuk Basaralaranen Hebersisi Olan Burkuk Zephyr Ld Eddi. 936 Yalinda Babasi Heinrich in Olumenden Sonra Otto, Saxonia Duku Olarak Tata Sikti. Tata Gektikten Sonra Babasan in Mirasini Divam Etermek Bikraliji Daha da Guklindermek Isen Yola Koyuldu. İlk olarak, Kralik Isindeki Ezanlari Bastirdi v Merkezi Otority Yeniden Tesis Eti. Otto nun Tata Sikisi Sedesedi Setsanya Isen Digel. Tam Alman Kraligi Isen Wanemli Bir Donum Naktasi Oldu. Onan Leiterligi Ultinda Kralik Burles Maevi Guklin Me Besladi. Otto Babasan in Mirasini Larita CDV Kraligini Bayuk Bir, Imperator Luk Helinge Tarmyolanda Wanemli Adam Larati. Otto Tata Gektikten Sonra Kraligen Sener Larini Jinis Letmek V Dusma Larina Karsi Gukunu Pakistirmek Isen Stretchik Hamlalar Yapti. Ilko Larak, Olman Prenslik Larini V Dukalik Larini Burlestirek Merkezi Bureau Turidola Sturdu. Bu Sekildi Kralik Itsindeki Isyan Lari V A Relikchi, Harakat Larry Bastirdi. Askari Alanda Otto nun and Buyuk Besarasi 955 T Lechfeld Savasi Nda Makarlari Yenilgi Ugrat Masi Oldu. Buzefer Sidis Alman Kraligini Degel. Tamavrupa Imakar Akin Lorenden Kurudu. Otto nun Zafiri, Anan Askari Diasini V Strejik Bisiralarini Birkezda Hakanet Ladi. Otto nun Leiter Ligi, Altinda Alman Kraligi Gukliniur V Avrupa da Wanemli Bir Oyanku Halin, Geliordu. Ankak Otto nun Hyaleri Bir Kralikla Sinerli de Gildi. Babasindan Devraldigi Mirasia Lari Tasimak V Kutsol Roma, Imperator Logunu Yenadin Kurmakistiordu. Otto nun Hyali, 962 Yalinda Roma de Papa Tarafandan Imperator Ilan Edelmisiel Gerseji Donastu. Bu Ole Sedis Otto Isen Degel, Tum Avrupa Tarii Isen en Wanemli Donum Nokdalarinden Biri Oldu. Kutsel Roma Imperatoro Arak Otto Hemdini Hemdisiasiasiasia Tora Tisini, Bekistur Divi, Avrupa da Yenibir Dunmine Capillarini Acti. My dear friends, in the course of time, Otto I's imperial rule was shaped not only by military victories, but also by profound and visionary administrative reforms. These reforms both strengthened the internal structure of the empire and redefined the relationship with the Church. Let's take a deeper look into this important period and see what kind of leadership Otto adopted. In his first years on the throne, Otto I felt the need to radically restructure the internal organization and administrative structure of the kingdom. At the heart of this need was the chaos created by the disorganized and ineffective governance of previous eras. Otto undertook a comprehensive series of reforms to eliminate this chaos and strengthen centralized authority. One of Otto's first reforms was the restructuring of the feudal system. He divided the kingdom's lands among loyal and powerful local lords. These lords were responsible for maintaining order in their territories and in the process were recognized for their loyalty to the emperor. This system both strengthened local governments and consolidated the central authority of the emperor. The local sovereignty of the lords played an important role in Otto's military and political strategies. Otto also made extensive reforms in the administrative and legal system. He established a centralized legal system to ensure justice and enforce the law. Cases from local courts could be transferred to the imperial courts, thus ensuring the rule of law. This arrangement aimed to ensure that justice was administered equally in every corner. Otto's administrative reforms also brought about a redefinition of relations with the Church. The Church was a major power in medieval Europe, both religious and political, and how Otto managed this power was critical to the future of the empire. Otto managed his relations with the Church strategically. In order to gain the Pope's support and to keep the power of the Church in check, he pursued a balanced policy in his relations with the Church. The crowning of Otto as emperor by Pope John XII shows how strong and strategic Otto's relations with the Church were. This coronation increased the international prestige of both Otto and the Church. Church reforms also played an important role during Otto's reign. He reformed the inner workings of the Church and the monastic movement. He increased the independence and influence of monasteries and strengthened religious education and social services. These reforms expanded the educational and cultural influence of the Church and strengthened the social structure of the empire. The social and political role of the Church played an important role in Otto's empire. The Church was an influential player in both religious and political decision-making. By keeping this role of the Church under control, Otto tried to establish a balance between both religious and secular powers. The support of the Church contributed to the stability of Otto's rule and the preservation of social peace. Dear viewers, when you step onto the stage of history, you encounter wars and conflicts that decide the fate of great leaders and empires. During Otto I's reign, many important battles were fought to protect the empire's borders, expand its territory, and defeat its rivals. These battles demonstrated not only military achievements, but also strategic acumen, diplomatic maneuvers, and leadership skills. Let's take a closer look at these battles and explore the conflicts that have left their mark on history, as if we were taking part in them ourselves. Otto I's first major military test of his empire was the Battle of Lechfeld in 955. As Hungarian incursions into Europe threatened the continent's security, Otto's strategic genius and military leadership played a critical role in eliminating this threat. The Hungarian raids into Europe were particularly targeting Central Europe. Otto developed a comprehensive strategy to stop these Hungarian attacks. Otto gathered all his military forces and made meticulous preparations for the great battle at Lechfeld Square. Otto's pre-war preparations were meticulous, both militarily and logistically. He analyzed the movements of the Hungarians, identified their weak points, and used this information to build an effective defense line. He also strengthened relations with local allies to ensure the support he would need during the war. The Battle of Lechfeld was the culmination of Otto's military strategy and leadership. Although the Hungarians launched a massive attack, Otto's clever tactics and preparations led to a major defeat of the Hungarian army. This battle broke the Hungarians' hold over Europe and gave Otto a great victory. After the battle, Otto's victory was not only a military success, but also changed the political balance of power in Europe. The Hungarian threat within Europe disappeared, and Otto secured the borders of his empire. To consolidate the power of his empire, Otto I needed to develop military strategies not only in the west, but also in the east. The Sassanid Empire emerged as a power in the east, threatening the borders of the empire. Otto carried out an effective military intervention against these threats. The Sassanid Empire's vast territories and strong military presence caused Otto to reshape his military strategies. He aimed to minimize the Sassanid threat by establishing an effective defense line on his eastern borders. Through both diplomatic and military preparations, Otto managed to limit the influence of this great empire. The Sassanid wars were long and hard-fought. However, thanks to Otto's strategic acumen and military leadership, the threats in this region were effectively eliminated. Otto's military operations secured the eastern borders and strengthened the empire's presence in the east. Otto's empire had to contend not only with external threats, but also with internal political conflicts. Internal disturbances and rebellions in Lotharingia became an important issue that attracted Otto's attention. These civil wars threatened the internal order of the empire. Otto developed both military and diplomatic strategies to deal with internal political conflicts. He tried to resolve some issues peacefully by negotiating with the rebels in Lotharingia. However, he had to intervene militarily in these conflicts. In the process, Otto's military leadership and strategic decisions played a critical role in consolidating internal order. The Lotharingian Wars were of great importance for the restoration of internal order in the empire. Otto's intervention in these conflicts brought internal disturbances under control and restored stability to the empire. These civil wars showed how comprehensive Otto's leadership was and his ability to deal with internal threats. Dear viewers, as we journey deep into history, discovering the lasting impact of great leaders and empires sheds great light on the complexity of the past. Otto I is a figure who left a great impact not only on his own time, but also on the centuries that followed. Let us now begin to explore Otto's legacy and the future of the Holy Roman Empire, as if we were living through these historical turns. Otto I's rule left a deep and lasting mark on the Holy Roman Empire. The reforms and strategic decisions implemented during his reign played an important role in determining the future direction of the empire. Otto's vision and leadership strengthened the empire not only militarily, but also politically and culturally. The administrative reforms carried out during Otto I's reign centralized and strengthened the empire. These reforms, which extended the boundaries of the feudal system and regulated the internal structure of the empire, ensured its long-term stability. Otto's strengthening of his relations with the Church and his support of the empire's administrative structure through these relations helped to consolidate the institutional structure during his reign. Otto's administrative reforms were effective not only in the military and political spheres, but also in the social and cultural spheres. These reforms enabled the different regions and communities within the empire to work harmoniously and contributed to the strengthening of central authority. Otto I's achievements enabled the Holy Roman Empire to gain a strong position on the international arena. Otto's military victories and diplomatic skills increased the empire's influence in Europe. During this period, the empire attracted attention not only for its military power but also for its diplomatic relations. Otto's success in international diplomacy consolidated the empire's relations with other great powers and influenced the political balance in Europe. These diplomatic successes during Otto's reign ensured the Holy Roman Empire's long-term survival as a major power. Otto I's role in history and his lasting legacy are defined not only by military victories, but also by reforms that shaped the political, social, and cultural structure of the empire. His was a period in which the foundations of the Holy Roman Empire were laid, and on these foundations a great power was built. Otto I stood out as an important leader in medieval Europe. The military victories, political strategies, and reforms of his reign marked turning points in the history of the empire. Otto's leadership was influential not only in shaping his own reign, but also in shaping subsequent imperial administrations. Otto's enduring legacy is directly linked to the long-term stability and strengthening of the Holy Roman Empire. His style of governance, reforms, and diplomatic skills set a model for future leaders of the empire. Otto's legacy was not only manifested in military achievements, but also in his political and cultural contributions. Otto I's legacy is considered an important part of European history, and the achievements of his reign were instrumental in shaping the periods that followed. Otto's leadership and reforms are recognized as an important turning point in the history of the Holy Roman Empire, and this legacy continues to leave its mark in the depths of history. Dear viewers, we have come to the end of this fascinating journey through our history. Together with us, we went deep into medieval Europe and traced three major events: Hungarian incursions into Europe and the Battle of Lechfeld, Byzantine Emperor Basileios II's victory over the Bulgarians, and the rise of Otto I and the Holy Roman Empire. Now let's put these epic events together and share our final thoughts on how history was shaped. The Hungarians' incursions into medieval Europe drastically altered the political and military balance of the continent. the threat posed by the Hungarians, with their fearless horse archers and strategic moves, reshaped Europe's defense strategies and military tactics. The Battle of Lechfeld was not only a military conflict, but also a symbol of how Europe united and fought against this threat. The Hungarian defeat in this battle showed how resilient Europe was, not only militarily but also culturally and politically. While Lechfeld remains a turning point in history, the Hungarian retreat marked the lasting effects of this great battle on Europe. With his victory over the Bulgarians, Byzantine Emperor Basileios II paved the way for the resurgence of the Byzantine Empire. Basileios II's military strategies and diplomatic maneuvers not only defeated the Bulgarians, but also restored Byzantium's declining prestige. This victory consolidated the Byzantine Empire's influence in Europe and drastically changed the balance of power in the region. Basileios II's leadership played a key role in the achievement of the empire's strategic goals and success in international relations. The defeat of the Bulgarians was not only a military success, but also a symbol of Byzantium's rebirth on the stage of history. Under Otto I's leadership, the rise of the Holy Roman Empire played an important role in shaping medieval Europe. Otto's military victories, administrative reforms, and diplomatic skills laid the cornerstones of the empire, building a strong and centralized state structure. The international influence of the Holy Roman Empire and Otto's legacy played an important role in determining the future direction of the empire. Otto's lasting influence ensured the empire's long-term stability and strength. In this epic journey through history, we explore the impact of great military victories, diplomatic successes, and strategic reforms on history. The Hungarian incursions into Europe, the Byzantine Empire's victory over the Bulgarians, and Otto I's rise to the Holy Roman Empire are all important turning points in history. Each event created a major historical transformation, shaping the dynamics and international relations of its time. By examining these key events, we have sought to understand that history is not just a series of events, but also the depths of the interactions between people, states, and civilizations. History offers us lessons from the depths of the past, but also guides us in determining the direction of the future. Thank you for watching our video. It has been a great pleasure and an instructive experience for us to explore together such important events in the fascinating world of history. If you would like to continue our journey through history and make more such discoveries, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow our videos. See you in our next video. Bye.